So
yeah, I mean it's
the way
it's
that
kinda,
things
I
are.
guess,
Shoot,
I think
I'd rather
that'd be
work
like another name for it.
the weekends because it's the worst weather and get the weekdays off.
yeah, yeah. Funny how the weekend doesn't cooperate with people's needs.
Yeah, so basically, yeah, like these 5 houses share all this area adjacent to the river as soon as that loads up. And it's actually smaller. The common area is actually smaller than it shows on here because he actually discovered that they had shrunk it like in the 90s. So he was actually
2 days of lousy
make sure
weather
everybody's
following 5
Yeah,
days.
because if you look at it on here,
Yeah,
his
that's
house
about
is
right.
actually partially in the common area. This is actually the common area. Got shrunk down, so it's actually now not. And so his thing will go like right there.
Did you have access to the 94 survey that was erroneous?
So it wasn't a road. Yeah,
it was interpreted.
Yeah, he showed that to us. He came in originally, we showed him this, and he actually dug up.
And I'm still wasn't here, I just want to make sure.
We did. Yeah, he actually went down, he did a ton of homework. He went down to like the registry of deeds at the county, and dug all that stuff out.
Yeah, it's hard to figure that.
How are you?
How you doing? Good, how are you? Good, Jeff. Hey, Jeff. Yeah, very nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Wow. I didn't realize you two hadn't met yet.
Yeah, I haven't met a lot of people here yet. Matt, you're Dave.
Dave, yep.
And your name is what?
My name is Matt, and you're. I've met Bob a couple times.
And he's still speaking.
Several members of my family in New York spent the day on lockdown and because of that subway shooting.
Oh yeah.
I just heard this feeling today. What happened?
Maniac lit off a smoke grenade inside a subway car and then started shooting. 10 people.
Yeah.
Yeah, he had 10 people. Amazingly, I don't think anybody died. But there was a lot of blood. I showed the photos of
yeah, absolutely.
the subway cars.
Nice.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Carry around for
How
me.
heavy, yeah. He could be your assistant.
They have the
It's just filled with
purpose.
beer.
Yeah, he kept away.
He doesn't drink beer, so there you go.
I haven't checked in with my
Yeah,
relatives.
always-
There.
I think there's enough surveillance cameras in New York. Somebody's going to.
Oh yeah. My nieces live in the city, so I'll have to check on them.
That's
Cute.
That,
Great grandbaby. Yeah,
great grandbaby.
yeah.
That's right. Jeez and Pete.
No.
At Horrocks.
Oh. He's growing. He's a cute little guy. He's not gonna be little. I don't think. Are you doing ZBA work? Or are you doing?
Yeah, I can't get connected to the Wi-Fi and
Oh,
just wondering whether it changed.
It's I just did it this morning. I think it's IM Delta. I believe it's all lowercase.
Yeah, I mean, I connected a million times with this computer. It's just not
Huh.
connecting now.
You said you have a number there?
What's the password?
My wife's
IM
niece
Delta all in lowercase.
lives, one lives in Brooklyn Heights and the other lives right.
And if not, it's like the first
right
time's
downtown
capitalized.
at,
I couldn't swear.
Fordham. She actually works for the university, so.
Oh.
Hey
So
there.
New York University over there? It's
No.
probably about 4th and 30th Street, somewhere there. Like some university starts. Yeah.
That's what we're not, and I wasn't sure where I was either, so somebody had to point me in the right
This is
direction.
my wife's
Sorry about that.
Thank you, sir.
sister and husband live in New Jersey.
Oh, okay.
So these are their daughters who live back in the
Okay,
city.
okay. Right across the bridge. Mr. Bowser.
Good evening. How are you?
Hi.
Mover.
Yeah,
Oh, my gosh.
I'm alive.
that's the good news.
We can tell that by the number of staff complaints we've received.
It's true.
Johnny. He said, Mr. McConnell. Said that all the complaints they received.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Hey Jeff, how are you? Thanks.
Got it.
Okay.
It's right next to you.
Okay, cool.
She right here?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Ready for you?
Well, I think this may.
She used to be over there. Okay.
This shows.
Does it?
Changed around a little
So I
bit,
think that
except
Oh,
you guys are in your spot.
Thank you.
Everything.
It
It is a primary spot.
Did I,
Mall drive, I did.
no, no. Well, that makes that one moot. I still want to talk to you though, but.
I just thought it might save some time.
Yeah, certainly. Is the applicant here?
We will link up.
Yeah, I was. Thank you.
He said he was going to be, I don't know. He's driving from, I think he's from Milford, so I don't know if he got caught in traffic. He's second though, so I guess.
No, I thought that was.
Did we lose a member and get a new member?
You all look the same to me.
Let's just look at the name tag there.
Oh, that's from, must have missed that one. That's from the CIA, the Corridor Improvement Authority. She's the consultant.
Oh.
Yeah, I thought we had a new member.
Yeah, I did too. I said, ah.
Usually I hear about those things before I get here. But
Yeah.
So it's 6 o'clock, but why don't we just give it a few more minutes in case Andrea's running late.
Yeah, and the applicant just sent me an email too, saying that he was gonna be here right around 6, so.
The first,
The second applicant.
second one.
Yeah, yep, first applicant's here.
Why don't we start?
Hmm?
First applicant is here.
We'll just give it a few minutes.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
It's okay.
I wasn't at the meeting when you were gonna do the last Menards meeting. Whatever happened to that?
Good question. So Menards, so they're from here. They had to go through and revise the plans for site plan review. And they did some revisions, but they still owed me a landscape plan and surety. And then it just kind of,
Fell apart.
well, they never proceeded with it. Now I understand that the gentleman that you saw here, he had a brand new baby during the period, then COVID, then, so I think, you know, a number of factors played into delay. I assume at some point they're still going to want to proceed, but they've got to finish
I
up.
ran into someone who lived in that neighborhood there, and they asked about it. So
Yeah,
I missed one of the meetings.
yeah. So I'm thinking, you know, this spring they'll be back.
I'll be back.
And
We'll
activate the
still
project.
pursue it. Yeah.
Yeah, and they were 99% done with all the submissions they needed for approval. So
Was the neighborhood appeased, or what was happening?
I think they are now because it hasn't happened.
Yeah, absolutely are. Yeah.
But I haven't heard anything more.
Okay.
Our former Parks and Recreation and Cemeteries Director lives in there, and he kind of has kept me updated on
All right.
the sentiment of the neighbors, and I haven't heard anything from him. So.
Delay certainly hasn't hurt their business. They need to land off his business out there.
Oh, no.
A lot of trade out there. Well, it's 6:03. Why don't we go ahead and get started, and we'll record other members as they come in. Call meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals to order. All right, first item of business. My favorite part, the Pledge of Allegiance. Join me in that. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call. David Arking, that's me. I'm here. David Corey. Here. Jeff Hicks. Tim Kaltenbeck. Here. Robert McConnell. Here. Sue Parr.
Here.
Andrea Castro.
Present.
We have an agenda. We have a quorum. We also have an agenda. Would I entertain a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
I'll support it.
All in favor?
Hi.
Opposed? Hearing none, the agenda is set. Okay, next item, citizen comments for items that are not on the agenda. You represent our citizens, do you have any comments for items not on the agenda? No? All right. Moving along. Correspondence. Do we have any correspondence for the zoning board on the items at hand or other items?
No, I sent out notices within 300 feet to both agenda items and didn't receive any contact on either one.
We also have before us the minutes of our last meeting in October 26, 2021. I would entertain a motion to approve those.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, the minutes are adopted. So we have two cases before us today. We have first up case number V22-1-6. Matt, could you please summarize the case for the board?
Sure. So the applicant lives at 6421 Barnett Circle. He's requesting a variance from section 9.02A1 to allow a side yard setback for an accessory building of 0 feet where 25 is required, and then a front yard setback of 20 feet where 50 feet is required. If you can see, so Barnett Circle is part of a condominium development with open space, a shared open space. Applicant claims that when his house was built in the 90s, the rear pin here wasn't placed correctly, and the house was subsequently put way over to the west side of the property line, which created the problem that he's dealing with. Originally, his house was actually in the open space, but sometime in the 90s, and not at the request of the applicant, but just as a request of the whole neighborhood, they shrunk the open space. So the open space is actually smaller than it looks on here, just because we actually found this out through this process, that the deed had never been mapped correctly. So he actually has a little bit more room than this. I believe it's like 17 or 18 feet. So his side yard setback is actually non-conforming as well. But this has actually been shrunk, and now his home is completely on his property. Because originally he wanted to build this, and when we thought the open space was a little bit wider, he wanted to build the accessory building, what would have been shared space, which would have been essentially building it on your neighbor's property, which you don't have the authority to grant. But then once he actually did a lot of research and went to the county and dug up and found that the open space had actually been shrunk, and he was able to squeeze in the report, there was an error. I think it said 600 square feet. It's actually 1,200 square feet for the building. It's not relevant to the case, but just note that. So he can fit a 1,200 square foot accessory building right up against his western property line, and then it would be 20 feet from the south line. And claims it's a self-created hardship because he didn't intend to place his home that far west. It was just an error with the survey stake. He said that he can't put it behind his home because then he wouldn't be able to access the accessory building in a logical way. He wants it to be as close to his house as possible. He can't place it on the east side of his home due to there's a septic tank over here and then all the associated things that connect it to the house through here, so he can't place it there. And then placing it any farther east over here to set it away from the property line would then block the entire driveway. So he's asking, he basically tried to put it as minimal as he could down here, and is asking for the permission of the zoning board of appeals for relief from that section for the side and front yard setback. And then the applicant is here to address any further questions you have.
You address the issue of just identify what the common area is.
Yeah, so and on that survey that's in your packet, it's that hashed blue line around the outside of his property, and that basically is all of this. Basically, I think the intent was that everybody in the whole development could walk across the common area and then access the riverfront. And so then in the 90s, I think that they all determined that it was kind of the size of it was kind of ridiculous. You see, like all these houses down here are actually built into the common space as well. So I think that's what drove them to change, to update that deed, because yeah, like I said, this house is built into it, and this house partially is as well. So they shrank that, and then so now he basically can fit all the way up against here, and then he's adjacent to property that fronts north, or the common area is adjacent to a large parcel that fronts North River, but it's not likely to be developed anytime soon. So he really, I guess, would just be impacting the common area. And I believe he's talked to his neighbors, and he could tell you more about that.
So the common area depicted on the aerial photo is actually much narrower than it actually is recorded. So,
right. Yeah.
There's actually two separate surveys.
Yeah.
In preparing the tax maps, the assessor and the engineering department used the original one with the wider areas. And then at a later date, we have another layout of these are site condominiums. It's the second site condominium developed in the township. So they narrowed the open space areas to accommodate some of the overlap that you see of buildings. So.
But you typically don't get to count that as your setback.
You do not.
Okay.
No. There's still, they have.
Has to be some special
So the
circumstance.
condominium description is of a land area. And, the sites were developed in accordance with the zoning, which is agricultural residential. So the envelope, the building envelopes all comply with the zoning that it's located in. And the common areas, like Matt said, the thinking was to have some access to the river, but it's fairly steep there. I don't know if anyone actually goes back there, and you can't really put a kayak in the river from there or anything like that. So, but it's mostly for I guess aesthetic purposes to view the river or whatever, nature walks.
Mr. Chair. I understand that the adjacent land is not likely to be developed, but my question is, granting this variance, what implications does that have for a developer in the adjoining land?
So I would say that, I mean, as long as you find that he has a practical difficulty, that this is why the standard is there. It's just that an issue inherent to the land itself created this problem. It wouldn't create a precedent where then people can just, because this is basically, you're giving a guy permission to do this in one, if you were to grant it in this one specific circumstance, but so it wouldn't create like a general precedent that you could do this in any development. It's just this, if you find that there's a practical difficulty, and that's what that standard is supposed to enforce.
So if development occurred in the adjacent land, would they need to
so there was
pull back from the
so there's development. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, no, say if there is development out here, it would be set back from actually this line here, but there's still, even though he's asking for a 0 lot line from his common area of his condo, he would still be buffered by, I believe, 10 feet from the adjacent property. So he'd be, I mean, I guess if you would think of it that way, if you thought of this as his property, it'd be only a 15 feet variance, but since it's the common area, it's going to be a 0 foot setback instead of 15. Or 10 feet.
So it wouldn't necessarily create a problem.
No, it wouldn't be right up on the adjacent property. It would be separated by 10 feet wide, I believe the common area is now.
Thank you.
Yep.
Also, developer on the other side would still have to maintain his normal
setbacks exactly,
because he doesn't have a special circumstance,
right? Presumably, yep.
Yes, yeah, I went out there. I hadn't been on North River Highway in a long time. And there's so much more development there. But I thought the land to the south, which would be beyond your garage, is that part of the common area? I think it is, isn't it?
So yeah, basically everything surrounds this envelope around the entire.
So there would not be anybody impacted. I felt.
Not really. Yeah. So he's asking for a 0 foot setback from the common area, which means he would still, in practice, then have a 10 foot setback from the adjacent property. And I mean, most likely, I don't think there's probably a lot of his neighbors that are using that strip of land there. Imagine if anybody's using the common area, it's to access
because it's all kind of brush, lots of underbrush and
so it's not
trees and things like that. So I don't see any problem.
For transcription purposes, that inquiry came from Sue Parr. Ms. Cascarella.
Yeah. Can you just clarify, do we have any regulations regarding the location of accessory buildings, as in the front of the house or the size, and how are those regulations relevant in this matter?
Okay, so basically they match the setbacks for houses. So if it's a 50 foot setback, front setback for the house, so this would be, you'd be allowing them in the front yard, whereas most of the time it would be flush with the front of it.
Yeah, there's no restriction on having accessory building in front of the principal building, the house.
Okay.
Right, yeah, if you had a 60-foot setback for
As
the
long
house.
as you meet the setback. So if you have
Yeah.
especially long lot or something, it's conceivable. And we have a few that has the garage in front of the house. Like that.
And then on the size of the accessory building?
In this particular zoning district, there's no limit.
Okay,
Just
So it'll be lot coverage that determines
and he's
maximum size.
I believe
Okay.
it's 30%, yeah, and he's far away from that, so.
okay, thank you.
Any other questions from board members for staff? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to open up the public hearing.
So moved.
Or,
I missed you, did that.
Me.
Oh, Dave McCory, supported by Andrea Castro. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, we are in a public hearing. It is a voice, it's a voice vote, isn't it? Yeah. So at this point, I would invite the applicant to come and present his case. Please state your name and address for the record, and
Steve
speak to
Patrick.
the, if you could speak to the criteria for granting a variance that that you're applying for.
Steve Patrick, I live at 6421 Barnett Circle.
Thank you.
I in fact had the house built back in the early 90s. And at the time that our house was built, they had 3 of the 4 pins. So, I mean, it's not like they had GPS. They were like digging, it was in January. And the assumption was that they had the right pin, but it was actually wrong pin. So that's how the house got scooched over, trying to center it up in the middle of the lot because it's kind of a trapezoid looking lot. And allow for the drain field and the backup drain field. That's what's on the right side of the house is the septic tank. And then there's a secondary drain field. And then out beyond that is the main drain field. And so I had Cubs come out and do a survey with the 3rd amendment of the deed that showed the shorter common areas. But in regards to the street, you can see on the survey that because of the cul-de-sac being there, it kind of shoves that back off from really what would be the common area if that was squared off due to the cul-de-sac. So I want to move, I'll move the barn as far as I can, but I want to be able to give my wife on the west side of the house is her garage. So I want her to be able to drive by the front of this to be able to access to get into her garage also. And my utilities run right across the front pad of that garage. And I don't really want to get the pad of the new building into the utilities that are out in front of that.
Any questions for the applicant? Board members? You say you want to put the accessory building next as close to the house as possible. Can you speak to why that's important?
Well, I mean, is anything other than that, I'm driving over either drain field pipe or I can't access around unless I go through the common area to get to the back part of the property. Otherwise, I'm in a common area on one side or the other, or I'm driving over a drain field and the pipe from the septic tank to the drain field, which I don't believe I can do through the drain commission.
Thank you. Let's call any questions for the applicant. Any other comments on this issue from anybody else? No? I have to ask. Very good. I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing. So moved.
Support.
Motion to close the hearing and is supported. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, the meeting is closed. Yes.
So Gary, you might remember this. We had a similar case like this a long time ago. It was the only reason I remember is it's somebody I went to high school with. The Songer family over in Delta Mills. The survey was incorrect, and the house was actually built in the setback. You remember that one?
Yep.
It's when we were over at the old church, actually.
Yep.
So I don't know how long ago was that. Long time.
Long time.
So there is a little precedent for the type of situation you have. It's certainly not common, but it's also not unheard of. So, you know, that type of error is very seldomly the fault of the property owner. And it sounds like in this instance, it's very similar to the previous one we had. The distinguishing factor, of course, is that was for the construction of the primary residence. This is for a little different purpose, but I just thought it would be worth mentioning to the board. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, I'm prepared to make a motion.
Ms. Parr.
Yes, in case number B-22-1-6, I move to approve regulations that the subject parcel 6420 Barnett Circle, Grand Ledge, will be considered for the following request: a variance from section 9.02A1 of the Delta Township zoning ordinance as amended to allow for construction of accessory building on the side yard setback of less than 25 feet and the front yard setback of less than 50 feet.
Motion on the floor. Should anybody second that?
I'll support it and maybe just add a friendly amendment if I could, to just indicating that the applicant satisfied all the criteria necessary for the. If that's acceptable to you.
Yes.
Motion on the floor. It has support with the amendment, a friendly amendment that the applicants met all the criteria for granting a variance.
Support the amendment.
Do a roll call vote. David Arking, I vote yes. Andrea Cascarella.
Yes.
David Corey.
Yes.
Jeff Hicks.
Yes.
Tim Kaltenbeck.
Yes.
Robert McConnell. Sue Parr.
Yes.
All right, the motion is passed. Can you please advise the applicant as to next steps?
So now you just need to pull a building permit, and they'll have me check the site plan as part of that. But yep, you're free to pull a building permit for your accessory building. And yeah, feel free to give me a call or email if you have any questions.
Okay, thanks, Matt.
Thank you.
Good luck to you.
Thank you, guys.
Okay. We also have tonight before us case number V-22-2-12. And can you please summarize that case?
Sure. So this one's going to be a little bit more complicated now. So originally it was a variance from the requirement that self-storage facilities appear only on county arterial roads, and member Hicks just gave me a map. It must have been different than the one I was looking at that showed that Mall Drive West actually is considered by the county a mall. So actually the variance portion of it won't be necessary. We'll actually just allow that. We still want to discuss the second part of the issue tonight, which is the interpretation of the zoning administrator for the definition of self-storage facilities. It's the contention of the zoning administrator that
let me take it from here. So the first part of the request, the variance itself is moot because it meets the standard, it being that road is designated as the county primary road. And thank you, Mr. Hicks, for bringing that to our attention.
I'm sorry it wasn't until an hour ago that I saw it. Otherwise,
so just to explain to you, you don't need that variance from the the second part of it is an interpretation, and I would like your help in working through an issue that I've been dealing with. So in this particular case, the development involves a conversion of the old AMC theaters, now Zap Zone, soon to be vacated by the Zap Zone people. Conversion of that building into a building that contains individual storage units that people can access. Our regulations for self-storage mini warehouse assumes a specific type of development. So if you're familiar with the facility on Westland Park and Knights Inn Drive, that assumes that the mini warehouses, these long buildings with individual garage openings and things like that. It doesn't really contemplate a single building with multiple storage units. It assumes that you pull your car up to the garage unit, open it up, put whatever you're going to put in your boat, your antique car, your Christmas deck or whatever. But we haven't, the ordinance does not really address the conversion of a building for storage use. So it's been my position that type of situation with a single building with storage units, it belongs in the industrial tract as a warehouse. Even though it technically is self-storage, it doesn't meet the design parameters, or it's not what the ordinance implies in terms of our standards for self-storage. The more I think about this development, though, this is kind of a hybrid. It has the typical storage units, and it has the AMC building, the bigger building with individual units. So as my thinking evolves on it, I'm inclined to think that this development would be okay because it does meet the intent of the ordinance. It just has a single building for other storage. I believe the one that you reviewed, similar variance with regards to the road, Mr. Byram, he has the typical mini warehouse development with the garages, but he's going to have a single building to put boats and cars and things under the roof in there. So in a way, it's very similar. The AMC is going to be a little different, is that it's not going to be high, wide, and handsome like a pole barn. It's going to be converted to individual units. I guess what I'm looking for is that in a case where you don't have the typical development, and this will, where you have, because I've had calls conversion of the mall to self-storage, or you have conversion of the old Hobby Lobby. I'm getting a lot of those inquiries, and again, they don't fit the model that we address in a zoning ordinance. So it's my inclination that those types of facilities without the typical layout that you see at Westland Park and Knights Inn Drive, that those don't meet the intended standard, and they should be in the industrial track. So I'm looking for a little guidance as to what you guys think with regard to that, because once if they're allowed in the commercial district, and my concern is if you allow a lot of we have a lot of vacant storefronts, we could be faced with a lot of requests for conversions. And
so as I understand it, the variance we gave last time, but that was for a self-storage unit where all the units had their own independent exterior door.
Right. There is one building, though, he had proposed that talked about boat storage, trailer storage under roof. And the ordinance does allow for storage of those types of things, but you have to get special permission from the planning commission and the board to do it. And it really assumes those are going to be outside storage. So they're properly screened. If you put it in a building, I guess that constitutes proper screening. So this is a little different in that, again, the conversion of the AMC building, it's not going to be one big wide open space. It's going to have individual units as well.
You're going to go into a building.
You'll go in through a common entrance and then access whatever units are inside.
It is a little different. You're right. The definition in our ordinance doesn't anticipate that at all. And I think that's common all over the state. I think the Michigan Municipal League and Township Organization.
In this particular case, my inclination is, it's okay because it's part of a larger development that meets the standard. But when you have just a freestanding building without the other more common design, then that constitutes an industrial use that needs to be in the industrial tract. So that's kind of where I'm going with it. And I guess I'd like you guys to weigh in on it and give me some guidance. So.
Right. Yes, I have a concern just for the fact that it's kind of like the heart of Delta Township. Do we want storage facilities right there? I really would like the input of both the trustees and
well, yeah, the planning commission and the board will get an opportunity to review the special land use permit.
We're step at one.
Yeah,
and then
so
we have planning.
My concern is just the conversion of an individual vacant building without any other development associated with it. And converting it into storage units. I've had, again, several inquiries from developers, and so I'm kind of concerned about precedent in that regard. So.
Mr.
Ms. Cascarella.
Yeah, I just want to say, when looking at our definition of self-storage facility, I don't read that. I think if it would have said each with a separate exterior door and lock. I guess I don't read our definition and see how that explicitly prohibits an interior.
Right.
And if our intent is possibly to make a determination that the proposal at the ZAP zone site meets the definition, I think we may want to go ahead, but not to allow proposed storage facilities that are exclusively interior. That our definition needs to change, because I think so too,
and I agree with you.
Yeah.
It's just that the standards that the ordinance and the specific use standards for this particular use, it assumes a specific type of development. And so that's kind of what I'm relying on. You're right. The definition is vague in that respect. So.
Okay.
Mr. Hicks.
I just want to offer kind of a point of clarification. So I understand exactly where Gary's coming from. The request really, as it stands right now, is moot. Gary's indicated that the question that the applicant has chose to appeal to the zoning administrator's decision. Gary's, you're now saying you think that the development as proposed is okay.
As I thought about it and as I studied his plan, I think that it meets the intent of the ordinance.
Okay, so just a word of caution, a couple of things. First, because of that, there's nothing to appeal. The zoning administrator's decision and determination has changed. It's not ripe. My guess is that you folks, after hearing what you've heard tonight, aren't in any big hurry to have the zoning ordinance provision that isn't applying to you at this point now clarified. But I think that the real recourse needs to be that staff, along with the board, can work on cultivating and conforming the ordinance. And I say this all the time. I know you get sick, you got your list of things. But before we make a determination on an ordinance as it stands today, that may inevitably change, thereby vesting certain rights in property owners that we may not want to vest from a legal standpoint, I think it would make sense to address the change in the ordinance itself to ensure that the ordinance reads the way we want it to read, that it actually covers the intent of the ordinance rather than guessing about what the intent is. So I think we ought to just be very cautious and recognize that there really is no case in controversy before us anymore. It's a moot point. I think we can still offer Gary the feedback, the staff the feedback that they want without running the risk of creating some type of unintentional consequence by rendering a decision on something that's frankly not properly before us anymore.
I was going to come to that conclusion too. There's nothing before us to rule on.
I guess it would be helpful if the sentiment is that it is desirable to distinguish between what the ordinance implies and what we want to see. Do we want to see just a freestanding building converted to storage units, because we do allow the self-storage in commercial areas, and that affects.
So the old days in, basically.
So that affects the entire, well, that could be appropriate too. The entire commercial corridor, we could see.
As a planning matter going forward, the nature of storage facilities needs to be tightened up, but that doesn't bear on this case.
Yeah, and that was my point, is that I think there's a bigger issue.
Mm-hmm.
If this is the discussion we're having, there's a bigger issue with our definition in our ordinance that needs to be addressed. Because I think there are potential problems that we will face.
I would also offer this, and I don't think staff's going to like this very much, but I mean, they don't need a variance. We're not being asked for an interpretation anymore. In my opinion, they should be getting their easement feedback.
Yeah. No, they will. And we can, I mean, they need a special land use and site plan. We can move it forward on that.
Well, we haven't paid for that yet, so we can apply to feed.
You've never had to argue so little for an outcome you desired.
Oh, I want.
Gary, excuse me, Mr. Chair.
Mr. McConnell.
Gary, so what you need for this in the future, I agree with the comments that are made, is some sense that clarification, we would like clarification developers or proposal to this body.
Well, I think what we need is to, I guess, I'm going to propose now to the Planning Commission and the board an amendment to the ordinance stating the concerns about what I think it could be undesirable conversion of vacant commercial buildings to self-storage, like I said, and then appropriately locate those only in the township's industrial tract. And then what we have now, the way the standards are written, we can allow those under special land use permit as we do in the commercial district. I'm just absent the conversion of a single building again. So.
I kind of loosely follow zoning in my old hometown of Troy, Michigan, and this issue kind of came up to them. They're kind of wrestling with the same topic, and I'm sure the Michigan Municipal League and the Township organization are gearing up to provide guidance on this. I don't have to tell you what tools are available to you, but I'm sure you're not alone.
Well, yeah, so the single building scenario, I think, is quite prevalent in heavily urbanized areas, because
it's been around in Seattle for 30 years.
We're in the suburbs. I think they've yet to catch on.
Yeah, I just have one question. I thought one of the variance requests was about being on a county primary road, which this isn't. So don't we still have to grant that?
So Mr. Hicks just provided us with a county map that designates it. As
it is. Sorry, I didn't realize that was the point you were making. I thought it was
the GIS I was looking at. Didn't have that on there, but yeah, he just showed one that had the letterhead of the road commission on it.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry, I missed that.
Thanks for asking the question. I wasn't sure. Okay.
All right. Okay. Mr. Hicks.
So I think the applicants indicated he'd still like to address the body.
Oh, let's come up and state your name and address.
No, he was.
I'm gonna let you vote on it first and then address the body if possible. Or
well, we're going to close the public hearing. So if you want to address it, you can address it now.
No, it's fine. Go ahead. Vote.
All right. In that case,
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Hicks,
I'd move the public portion of the hearing be closed.
What's going to get there?
Support.
Motion on the floor and has support to close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. Meeting is closed.
So it turns out that both requests are moot. It's probably my fault. It took a long time to get where I think we needed to get. So It's just going through the special land use permit process now before the planning commission.
So here was my question.
If you're going to speak on this, I appreciate that, but please state your name and address for the record.
When we stand up there, there's camera.
For the microphone, the transcriptionist might like that.
Sorry, I had surgery done this morning. So.
Oh, sorry.
It's kind of fun. Yeah, I know. So anyways, my name's Tom Lapp. I'm from Michigan. My partner, Rob Jacobs, we're both business owners, family owners, members of not this community, but Michigan communities.
Just need your address for the record.
Thank you.
1831 Grindwood Court.
Thanks.
Anything else?
That's it.
Okay. So my question, and my original question was, I questioned the variance, and then I questioned special land use. We've done this through multiple communities throughout Michigan, only throughout Michigan, within the band of Grand Rapids to Oakland County. If we're here for the variance, what about special land use? Shouldn't it all go one and one, or no? Because variance is
totally different
at
body.
this point.
Different. You got to go before the planning commission for special land use permit. This is just the zoning board of appeals.
So this was mute then at this point.
Well, it turned out that after some further investigation by Mr. Hicks in terms of the type of road that you front on, we determined that it did meet the standard.
Thank you very much to your board. Thank you for your time to us, and it's great up here. You got great restaurants.
Studied your proposal of what you want to do there. I think that you meet the intent of our ordinance, so the interpretation became moot. So what we can do for you is that you've paid some fees to appear before this body. We can just apply them to the special land use permit application, so you won't have additional monies. You might have a little bit, but not.
To me, it's not the fee so much; it's timing at this point.
Sure.
So we spent a couple times, and I rushed to get it through on this meeting, and I appreciate everybody's cooperation at this point, especially the planning engineering department. But it's special land use. We are dealing with timing. We're dealing with banking. We're not a big corporation. We're local guys, local families with kids.
Yeah, unfortunately, state law prescribes the process in the time period. So yeah, prior to an application is 30 days prior to a planning commission meeting. Within that period, we have to notify people within 300 feet. We have to publish newspaper ads, and we have to have other agencies have an opportunity to review. You've already been working on storm drainage, so we need a statement from the drain office saying that you're doing that. And you'll meet their standards, and so it takes a little bit of time prior to when the planning commission gets to review it. So
so you had a race that had 3 hurdles. And you had to get through the first 2 before you could get to special land use, but the first 2 hurdles have now been removed. So you can go right to special land use.
Well, obviously I came to a 5 hurdle race, and it was a 2 hurdle race, and I registered 2 months ahead of a 1 month time period. So now I'm 1 month behind. I hope the board can understand, and it's kind of like everybody else. I mean, you've all gone through different variances, but that's what I'm kind of going up against. I am not a big business owner. I am not a corporate. I'm an individual, retired, trying to keep everything going on for my family. So
I get it. I'll share with you some unsolicited advice that I was given by a senior partner when I first became an attorney. He said, take the win and say thank you and move forward. It doesn't matter how you get there.
Sounds like you went to Kool-Aid. So, I'm pretty sure I know who you're talking about. No, I've heard that before. I'm pretty sure I can quote what that came from. But anyways, thank you very much for advice. I appreciate it. I'm not a lawyer either. Board, thank you very much.
You'll work with Matt to get you through as quickly as we can. So.
Thank you. Are we good?
Yep, you're all good.
Best of luck on your project.
Appreciate you.
That brings us to old business. It says here we have none. Is that still true?
Still true.
Right. Brings us to other business. Is it time for this already? Election of officers.
Yeah, it's April, so that's when you're supposed to do it. So.
What is the pleasure of the board?
You have no term limits here at the Zoning Board of Appeals like we have in the Planning Commission. So the existing officers can continue to serve if that's the desire of your peers. So
sounds good to me.
Yep. Thanks a lot.
You motion to honor.
I believe somebody needs to make a motion.
Yeah.
I'm gonna name names.
So moved.
I move that we retain the current officers for the new term.
Support.
Motion on the floor, it has support. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. I'll do my best for you. Thanks so much.
I'm sorry I didn't find that sooner. I just,
No,
I don't know what made me think to look
yeah,
at that.
Yeah.
Because I started thinking like, what's a primary road?
Yeah, we probably, Matt, these guys use the magic box, GIS and all that.
Yeah, no,
And a lot of times that isn't reflective. And so the old style with the maps. Those are-
yeah, it was like 5 o'clock. And I'm
Yeah.
like, you know what, I'm just gonna see, because I was curious more than anything, what a primary road is, if something like Elmwood or Malta.
Yeah, like generally, yeah, like Elmwood would be, and then, yeah, Saginaw,
Yeah.
and then that sort of side street, yeah.
Otherwise, I wouldn't, it's,
No,
it wasn't intended to be an
appreciate,
ambush.
no, appreciate it.
Is that an Act 51 designation? Primary road for, is that how? How townships get their road money? Is some roads are classified as primary roads?
Yeah, so those are the roads that.
So it would be the Act 51 map that would
Yeah.
cover.
So, yeah, and that's how, so, we've got, the county's got a local road millage, but that doesn't cover these repairs. That's through the state and the feds. I should have remembered that. That's Mall Drive. And they just resurfaced that. And we pay, the tax millage goes for the local streets, subdivision streets and things like that. We don't get state monies for that. So
No, we just pay twice to the county.
we pay twice for the county.
That's enough.
All right. Moving along to item 11, staff comments. I just want to preface this by saying, Gary, welcome back. It's good to have you.
Yeah.
Oh, it's good to be back. Daytime television sucks.
You get all the Medicare, Medicaid ads,
Say
the
Monday.
slip and fall attorneys.
Yeah. So, I had a prolonged illness. It was an infection that they couldn't get under control. They finally did it. I ended up going to Cleveland Clinic and they asked a different question. They were less concerned about dealing with the infection because the hospital I went took it. And they said, why are you getting these infections? That was a question never asked. And they figured out in a day and set me on my way. And now I'm recovering quite nicely. Thank you to them. And so I'm not 100%, but I'm pretty close.
So on one hand, you're thankful. On the other hand, you're like, what the hell happened?
Thank God for Cleveland Clinic.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
So they're excellent.
Awesome to see you back.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So thank
Any
you.
other comments on this or anything else?
Well, if you have questions about anything going on, I'd be happy to answer them if I can. Matt's been a trooper holding the fort down, him and Dave Walagora.
When did you start the MS?
I actually started, I think, was it the last actual meeting we had in person with the ZBA? I started February 2020, so like a month before.
I don't feel super terrible then.
No.
I introduced myself. I was free to go. Like I've been here for 2 years.
This is only my first in-person ZBA meeting.
Baptism by fire.
Exactly.
You got it all tonight.
Yeah, exactly.
So, we're continuing to work with Delta Crossings. That project is going strong. The latest phase includes apartments that they want to get started. The CIA board is conducting their work and developing a plan for the corridor. They met yesterday and we have our consultant who has kind of a plan of action to move forward with that. It's about 9 months worth of panel discussions and studies and things like that. And they got it planned. So if you're interested in that, kind of check the website. They meet typically on the second Monday at 4 o'clock. So in this room. So if you're interested in those proceedings, feel free to attend. It's all public meetings. What else is going on? Inquiries for more apartments at the southwest corner of Barbaton, Saginaw. The same group that did the the redevelopment of the hotel across the street, Group 10, Mike Koza and company. So they're all going to this, you know, you're familiar with the Pepper Ridge project, the Redwood development. They're all kind of modeled after that. It seems to be the current trend.
Broadbent and Saginaw, where?
Well, yeah, right on the corner across from the McGaldy strip retail west of that.
Got it.
Yeah, they're talking
Take
about
down that house.
Yeah, they're talking about apartments there. Yeah, Matt's
Where the Mark Cairns owns that house on the goes
no,
down.
that's Mark is on the north side.
It's this one, right? It's this property right here.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
A lot of tire kickers on the Mike Hyde property. His estate's trying to liquidate all his holdings in the township. So Christ and Saginaw, we've getting quite a few inquiries on that parcel. That's under a consent judgment, of course. So there's some restrictions on what can happen there.
Anything that's going to generate likely variance application?
Well, these are all blank slate projects, so it shouldn't. I'm not saying it won't, but it shouldn't. Zap Zone, you know, they're vacating the old AMC and they want to move to the Yonkers space. So I just got a land division filed on that. Well, it's been filed, but the parcel they on to create had some issues with it, so they finally solved those. And
is it still open, Zap Zone?
I don't know if it is or
I'm
not.
shocked it's lasted though.
Yeah. So he wants a bigger and better space. I think he also wants a liquor license.
Oh.
So it's, I don't know if he had.
That was part of the applicant's presentations. I guess that's going to be his business model moving forward. He's actually going to follow Zap Zones are going to move into bigger places, and he's going to wherever they're in the state, he's going to move into their old. He said the one in Ann Arbor, I guess, has bumped their mall business up 30% or something.
Well,
I don't know how long that.
You know, if it brings traffic to the mall, it's probably a good thing. We'll see.
Yeah, didn't you say also that he would try to buy the whole entire mall? The Zap
the Zap Zone guy wanted to buy the whole mall, but I guess whatever the group that bought it for like $1 million more than he bid for it. Yeah, he tried to buy the whole mall, I guess.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion that we.
Just a second. Are there any board comments?
Thank you.
Mr. McConnell does.
McConnell.
For your obnoxious Robert's Rules, man, comment for future reference. When there is a proposed amendment to a motion, you need to vote on the amendment first and then go back to the original motion and vote on that. It's a two-step process.
Isn't that only if the motion has already been made? I think if it's a friendly amendment to an unmade motion, if the original motion bearer accepts it, it counts as part of her original motion, doesn't it?
You need to vote on the amendment first. It's always two-step. Because it could be the case that it's a friendly amendment people didn't like. You need to give them a chance to say they didn't like that part before you go back to the original.
I will not just dispute your parliamentary chops, but it seems odd to me that you would just vote on the amendment before you vote on the motion.
That's, take my word for it.
All right. So noted.
It didn't make any difference in this situation because nobody objected to the friendly amendment. If they had, it would have made a difference.
I still suspect her motion hasn't been voted on yet. So, I mean, she adopted the amendment to her motion, which means it's not really amended. She amended it herself. But that's, I won't on you.
Sounds like a good conversation. You guys can finish at Frank's.
That's a terrible idea. We should talk about other stuff at Frank's. Any other board comments? Being none, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
Support.
I'd like to offer an amendment to that. No, I'm just kidding.
Is it friendly or not?
All in favor, say aye.
At this point, that's questionable, right?
Hearing none, we are adjourned.
Nice job, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for discovering that issue.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm sorry it was last minute.
Oh. See ya.
Thank you.
But you have your
Turn
phone.
your recording.
Thanks.
To call Larry, tell him to come and pick me up.
Night.
Thanks for coming.
Hopefully it's still nice outside. Thank you, I appreciate that.
974 8052.
No, I was just listening. It was just a recorded message. Sorry.
It was just a general, how you doing? Kind of.